Hello and welcome back to the Crime Reel. For today's true crime narration, we shall be heading back to the celebrity world of the 60s and 70s to look at the case of singer Claudine Longet and her Olympian boyfriend Vladimir Spider Sabich. Our story today begins on the 29th of January 1942 when Claudine Georgette Longet was born in Paris, France. Her parents followed a scientific route, being an X-ray manufacturer and a doctor. But from an early age, Claudine was far more interested in the arts. She loved to sing, dance and act, and at the age of 17 was spotted on French television. As part of a company made up of about 80 young women from Germany, England, Sweden and France, she ended up travelling to Las Vegas to become a showgirl. She became a dancer at the Tropicana Hotel and Resort in Las Vegas as part of the Folies Bergère Revue, eventually becoming one of the lead dancers in the show. On the 15th of December 1959, she appeared along with 5 other dancers from the Folies Bergère in a short article printed in numerous newspapers across the US with the headline, "Dancers Criticize American Men." This 6-line article included a picture of the women and explained why they didn't like American men, stating that most agreed they find American males lacking in attentiveness and some found them tight with money and too fat. It was exactly 2 years to the day after this article appeared in the press that Claudine married American Andy Williams in Los Angeles. Andy Williams was a famous award-winning American singer and TV star who, over the course of his career, recorded 43 albums and also hosted the Andy Williams Show. But is perhaps best known for the theme song Moon River from the 1961 movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. Claudine and Andy met when she was just 18 years old and he was 32, after he stopped to help her when her car had broken down. In February 1961, Claudine appeared on Andy's TV show alongside Ella Fitzgerald and Ray Charles. Several months later, it was announced that Claudine and Andy would be getting married, and on the 15th of December 1961 they tied the knot at the Bel Air Presbyterian Church before honeymooning in Palm Springs. Claudine's career would also go from strength to strength. She became a successful recording artist, releasing 5 albums, and also starred in several films and television shows. From starting her US journey as a showgirl in Las Vegas, it wasn't long before Claudine was regularly socialising with the likes of Barbra Streisand and Robert Kennedy. Andy and Claudine became close friends with Robert Kennedy and his wife Ethel. They would often go on cruises together on the Salmon River in Idaho during the summer months, and Claudine and Andy would often host the Kennedys at their Palm Springs and Bel Air homes. There have been rumours that Claudine and Robert had a brief affair sometime in 1967. Nevertheless, the two couples remained firm friends, with Andy and Claudine being present at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles when Robert was assassinated in 1968. They had been due to have dinner with him after his speech that evening, but instead joined his family at the Good Samaritan Hospital, where doctors battled in vain to save his life. Andy and Claudine had 3 children together, a daughter, Noelle, who was born in 1963, and then 2 sons, Christian, born in 1965, and Robert, who was named in memory of Robert Kennedy, who was born on the 1st of August 1969. However, before Robert was a year old, Andy and Claudine had legally separated. They remained close friends, continued to work together and co-parent their children. It would seem that their separation was an extremely amicable one. In 1972, 2 major events happened in Claudine's life. Firstly, she became a US citizen, and secondly, she attended a celebrity ski race in California's Bear Valley, where she met Vladimir Spider Sabich. Vladimir was a graduate of Colorado University and a member of its ski team. He had represented the US at the Olympics, finishing 5th at the 1968 Winter Olympics in Grenoble, won the World Pro Skiing Crown in 1970, his first year on the Pro Tour, and also numerous other accolades. Vladimir was said to be a very charming and charismatic man, and it is believed that he helped popularise skiing in the US in the late 1960s and 70s. With lucrative endorsement deals, he became wealthy and lived in a $250,000 home in Aspen, Colorado. The value of this house nowadays would be worth upwards of $3 million. The attraction between him and Claudine was instant and intense. They became very close very quickly and were said to have a passionate yet volatile relationship. Claudine, along with her 3 children, moved into Vladimir's home in the exclusive Starwood division in Aspen. Aspen, Colorado is a stunningly scenic place. There was a playground for the rich and famous at that time. Vladimir was invited to all of the best and wildest parties, and it wouldn't be long before Claudine became increasingly jealous of his popularity. Rumours began to circulate that Vladimir had become tired of Claudine and her children interfering with his bachelor's lifestyle, and he was planning to break up with her. Their relationship had always been volatile, but it was becoming increasingly explosive, and it came to a head on the 21st of March 1976. Vladimir had been skiing that day and returned home to shower and change before meeting his coach, Bob Beatty, for dinner. Whilst preparing to shower, he was shot in the stomach by Claudine. She called the emergency services shortly afterwards, but the bullet had severed a major artery and Vladimir was losing a lot of blood. Holding the hand of the woman who had shot him, he died shortly afterwards. An investigation was launched and centred on whether the shooting had been deliberate or accidental. On the 22nd of March, Claudine was told her rights and released on a $5,000 personal recognizance bond. She left the courthouse in tears with her former husband, Andy Williams, at her side. Not believing it was a tragic accident, some of the press and locals began to turn on Claudine, and many were angered by her presence at Vladimir's funeral. Claudine maintained that the gun had gone off accidentally, but the authorities doubted this version of events. On the 8th of April 1976, she was charged with felony reckless manslaughter, which carried a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Due to the level of press interest, the pre-trial hearing was held behind closed doors in June of 1976. Claudine entered a plea of not guilty with her attorney, Charles Weidman, explaining that Vladimir's death had been a terrible accident. He stated that Claudine had been concerned for her and her children's safety while Vladimir was away on a business trip, and as such had asked him to show her how to use the gun. Vladimir had reportedly made it clear to Claudine that when the red dot was covered, the safety catch was on and the gun would not fire. She had the gun in her hand, her finger on the trigger when the gun went off, accidentally shooting Vladimir. A Denver ballistics expert also testified that the gun's safety was inoperative. However, the district attorney, Frank Tucker, did not believe for 1 second that the shooting was an accident. He noted that the Denver ballistics expert had also testified that the trigger had been pulled, not faulty, and that following the decline of their relationship, Vladimir had given Claudine until the 1st of April to move out of his house. Part of the prosecution's case at trial would rely on details in Claudine's diary, which detailed the unhappy state of her relationship, and also blood and urine samples, which were taken on the night of Vladimir's death, which reportedly showed alcohol and cocaine in Claudine's system. However, on the 29th of July 1976, a judge ruled that both the diary and blood and urine samples were inadmissible as evidence at her trial due to them being seized with an invalid search warrant and procedures being breached. It was stated that investigators had violated her rights by removing her hidden private diary from a dresser drawer. The prosecution appealed this decision, leading to delays to the start date of the trial, but ultimately the judge's decision was upheld in December 1976. The case went to trial in January 1977, and in order to get a guilty verdict, the prosecutors would need to convince the 7 men and 5 women of the jury that Claudine consciously disregarded a substantial and justifiable risk. On the stand, Claudine stated that she had picked up the gun and walked toward the bathroom, saying to Spider, "I would like you to tell me about this gun." She went on to state that Vladimir had reassured her that the gun would not fire just moments before it did, adding that, "I told him to try to make it, to talk to me. He was fainting. I tried to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but I didn't know how." Claudine told jurors how he had cried, "Claudine, Claudine, Claudine," as he fell after the gun accidentally went off. He slid down and she told him not to move and that she would call the hospital. Andy Williams testified on Claudine's behalf, stating that she had consistently told him that the shooting was accidental. Without a diary and blood test, the prosecution had to rely on the autopsy report to contradict Claudine's version of events, questioning the distance the gun was fired from, but even here there was discrepancy over the distance, somewhere between 2 and 8 feet. After a 4-day trial, the jury was sent to deliberate. Was Claudine guilty of felony manslaughter, negligent manslaughter, or would she be acquitted? After just a few hours, the jury returned, finding Claudine guilty of criminally negligent manslaughter, a misdemeanor, and it was later revealed that the trial would have resulted in a hung jury if this lesser charge had not been introduced by the judge. Claudine continued to protest her innocence, whilst Andy Williams stated his disappointment in the verdict. Meanwhile, Vladimir's mother refused to comment. It would seem that all parties were disappointed with the outcome of the trial. Talk of an appeal followed, with the district attorney stating that he believed that she was guilty, and if she chose to appeal, it would be the biggest farce in legal history. After Claudine's sentence was confirmed, a 30-day prison sentence at the time of her choosing, 2 years probation, and a $250 fine. It was decided that she would not appeal. Many were left outraged at the lightness of this sentence. Following the completion of her trial, she went on holiday before starting her 30-day prison sentence on the 18th of April 1977. An appeal for her to be released 10 days early due to her good behaviour was denied, and she was released at 5 p.m. on the 18th of May 1977. Meanwhile, Vladimir's family filed a civil suit against her, which was settled out of court in September 1979. The value of this suit has been reported at $780,000 and also $1.3 million. The settlement contained a confidentiality clause that prevented Claudine from writing or speaking about the case forever. Following her conviction, she led a very private life. She married her defence attorney in June 1985, and they remained living on Aspen's Red Mountain, not far from where Vladimir had been shot. One other snippet that may be of interest to you is the district attorney in her case, Frank Tucker, was found guilty of 2 counts of felony embezzlement of public funds the following year. That concludes today's case. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel, click like, and add any comments down below. Thanks very much for listening to the Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. In the late 1970s, the Rolling Stones wrote a song about her called Claudine. Goodbye.